GM fam, today is Friday, May 3rd, except I believe where our guest today is, where it might already be May 4th. Today
Mm.
is the first day of the rest of our lives, and I sincerely hope for all of you it's your best day yet. Joining us today is Alan of Railgun. He bills himself as the janitor, but I get the impression that he does so much more than just cleaning up messes. Although any startup has got a ton of messes, and it's really a great time to bring Alan on to talk about everything that's going on within the world of Railgun privacy, because over the past few weeks, basically the U.S. government has kind of stepped up a lot of its kind of legal assault on cryptocurrency. The Samurai wallet got taken down, and I noticed a lot of my friends were at that moment like kind of saying, "What's going to happen with Railgun? Is Railgun going to prison next? Is Railgun going to like?" So, Alan, it looks like you might be in a jail cell. I can't quite tell. Well, where are you at? What's going on?
Man, well, I don't stay in very bougie hotels, but I'm currently in a hotel in Sydney. We're here for East Sydney to hang out around the hackathon. I gave a talk at Pragma yesterday about privacy, and so yeah, what you're seeing is my lovely accoms.
Nice. It's got to be somewhat bougie. You said you're staying in the financial district, right?
Yeah, at the cheapest place I could find.
Okay, so
Yeah.
if anyone's trying to find you, they could look for the Motel 6 or the Red Roof Inn. And
Exactly right. Yeah. Yeah, but thanks for having me on, man. I think privacy is a pretty important keystone bit when it comes to DeFi, when it comes to just like finance in general. Like if we zoom out from the crypto space, yeah, privacy is going to be like a continual keystone in all of those things. So stoked
yeah,
to talk a bit about it.
I've got to ask you because I've used Railgun before. It's fantastic. Like the I'd heard a lot of good things about it because I'm good friends with like Crypto Condom, and Crypto Condom
Mm,
like was a big advocate in saying you're all sleeping on Railgun. So I tried it. And for my sake, the reason I was using it was very specific. Like I had to send some money to someone, and I just made a horribly embarrassing trade, and I didn't want anyone to know like how stupid I was. So I was like, how
right.
can I get this money without like them knowing about this idiotic NFT I just purchased that tanked 99%? Uh,
Only
so
only 99.
I know I'm doing pretty good as it turns out. So at any rate, like, so I used Railgun. It was great. Am I going to prison?
Yeah, currently, no. I don't. I think if you go to prison for anything, it won't be because you used a smart contract. Um, and so I think that you've kind of hit a bit of a like the easiest reason why people want privacy, right? And so like one of the things, yeah, I talked about this yesterday. So if anybody's watching the stream who's here at Pragma, but I think like one of the things that we really got to do is take a second to like understand why privacy is important for finance. Why it's like why people value it whenever they talk about like transactions that they're making. And so like I'm sure you've used not crypto related things when it comes to sending monies to people. So maybe Venmo or Cash App, PayPal, or hell, maybe even like a wire transfer, right? Oh, are you on mute or am I not hearing? Let's see.
That's me. That's me. Yeah, I have to send wire transfers every now and then, and when I do, it reminds me of how inevitable cryptocurrency is going to be. Like,
Yeah, shout
you know,
out to the
in
Swift
crypto, I
system.
could
Yeah.
in crypto, I could not that I have $1 million lying around that I just want to send around, but I could just send it and it would be in your wallet in 12 seconds.
Yeah,
In
totally. And
Swift, I
but
try
one of
and
the
send
things.
like a down payment for something completely above board, and I need to go into the bank and sign a million documents and spend hours, and this for like $1,000. It's like
Yeah,
insane.
definitely. But I think one of the things that's really beautiful about the traditional finance space is that we have like this actual actor type privacy, right? So whenever I send money to you to your bank account, even if I have the details, right? I have the ABA routing information or something like this along with the account. I don't get to learn how much is in your bank account, and I can't like snoop on you and figure how much your mortgage is and how much you pay for dog food and things like this, right? That's like a completely like perverse thing that happens only in the crypto space, right? Um, and we totally do it, right? We do it all the time. I don't know about you, but whenever I take and I send crypto to somebody else in the crypto sphere, immediately what I'm doing is clicking on Etherscan and proceeding to judge them harshly for all of the shit coins that they've bought, and all of the memes they've been rugged for, and like, oh dude, you put money in Blast, like what were you thinking? You're like, oh, you locked your curve up for 4 years, you're a moron, right? Whatever it might be, right? And so like,
Guilty.
um yeah, same. But yeah, or you like scroll directly down to the bottom and see where they seeded that wallet, right? And you try to figure out, oh, like, am I more OG than this person or something like that, right? And like we do it just out of like habit. We don't even think about it, but like this sort of like voyeurism doesn't exist in like any other aspects of finance. And I think that in order for like DeFi to be like really genuinely taken seriously, we have to have like that kind of privacy element in there, right? That wallet side privacy, because I think that there's certainly a balance. There's something really beautiful about the auditability of DeFi, but I don't think that that extends to the to the wallet side of things, and that's kind of like what the Railgun smart contracts are after, right? Is like, how do we take and make things more akin to that like traditional finance actor type privacy that you are afforded whenever you send money to and fro, from your balance.
So this is one of the things that's like most puzzling to me is that I live, I'm doxxed, I'm an American, I live in a like extensive surveillance state, and that's fine. I've made peace with it. Why don't they like adore cryptocurrency because of that? Because they have such transparency into absolutely everything that's going on. They can basically trace the custody of funds almost entirely. There's like very few privacy tools. I just doesn't make sense to me that they're like attacking this thing that should be this complete boon to what they're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if like if we want to go like straight tinfoil hat, which I always love these conversations, right? It is like probably one of the most like perfect, surveillance machines that has ever been, developed, especially when it comes to like the account-based models like Ethereum. Um, and I think like with time, it's only going to get worse, right? One of the things that we have to really appreciate is that it is immutable, right? And yeah, the heuristics and like AI being applied to crypto are only going to get better. Like they're only going to get better at doing it. Like they're not getting worse at identifying things on chain. That's for sure, right? And so yeah, totally. But I think that like it's kind of important to appreciate that there's like various things out there in the world that are like really pro privacy, as well. California is a really great example of that, right? They have a lot of like consumer protection type things that do extend to your, to your privacy. I think that like there's also, God, I'm trying to think of it. There was a really great bill. I think it was like HR 4108. Yeah, and it's basically like an anti-surveillance act in America, right? So there's things that exist that are like for privacy. GDPR is a really great example. The right to be forgotten, which I don't know how the hell you exercise that right on Ethereum, but like outside of Railgun, of course. But suffice it to say, I think that like like the dichotomy of like pro privacy regulation and like surveillance state is something to be pondered, I guess.
So let's talk a bit about Railgun specifically.
Mm.
Now, I understand that there's like tools built in where, for example, like I mentioned, I used Railgun once just to like play with it. If like the feds came to me and said, "Hey, like we're concerned that you might have that a couple $100 you sent might have gone to North Korea," you have something called privacy pools that I could use to prove that I did not send funds to illicit actors. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, so the architecture for Railgun, I think what's really for people to understand is that like there is like no way for you to actually like ultimately take and fake the mechanics of Ethereum, right? Don't allow you to take and like fake where funds came from, right? Definitively, they came from somewhere, an account, right? Or
Right,
that
right.
whether that's like an individually held account, multi-sig, or a smart contract, like the funds came from somewhere. That's the whole way the consensus works. And so what you could do, right, whenever you take a deposit funds into Railgun, right, you're depositing them into like this new address format. We call it 0ZK. So you get a 0ZK address that's bound to your private keys, right? And so you have this, yeah, you have like a total like account history. It just happens to be encrypted. And so you can do a lot of things with this, right? So, one of the things that, came along early, of course, was view keys, right? So you can take and like decrypt this for people, right? So, commonly people who use things like, Railgun will give like a view key to maybe their accountant, or like if they have somebody in like the finance office or HR, if they're paying like payroll and things like this through Railgun, they'll give a view key to, someone to take and like do the accounting type stuff, right? So they don't give them spending access to the account, but they can take and keep up with the Google Sheets, or maybe you're using LibreOffice like me. Shout out to open source software, right? So you can have like view keys. It's really great, right? And you can know that this is cryptographically sound because it's just adhering to the consensus mechanisms in which it's deployed. We did a partnership really early on with like Coinly, which was really a lot of fun. Because Coinly is something that I use on a pretty regular basis. It's gotten much better over the years. So you can actually take and have like so you can actually take and have like a tax report, if you will, right, through Coinly of your 0ZK address. And yeah, you mentioned the whole like privacy pools protocol, right? Which is effectively this really neat zero knowledge proof of non-interaction, right? And so this came about actually a while ago, right? So of course, people who are listening to this probably are pretty well in the weeds of crypto, and know about the white paper that exists from Amin Soleimani and Vitalik, and some other cohorts from Chainalysis, et cetera. It's the practical equilibrium paper, right? A design for more compliant privacy. And this was actually, but well before this paper came out, there was this team in Turkey called Chainway, right? And Chainway wrote this really interesting protocol that allowed you to take and make a zero knowledge statement of your withdrawal from Tornado Cash, right? So you could take and prove that you were not on an accumulator or a list of addresses, right? And you were not one of those people, right? In other words, you don't tell them, which address that you are, right? You just tell them that you're not one of those, right? Whatever that accumulator might be, right? And so I thought that this architecture was really quite interesting and could be really powerful because, view keys are really great, right? And I don't mind giving one to my accountant, or maybe someone internal at like a company who's in the finance department or whatever, right? But the reality of those is that since it's like a cryptographic key, right? It's not revocable. Like once you give someone a view key, it's theirs, right? You've doxed to whomever that might be, and you hope that they don't give it to somebody else, right? And so this is kind of like a step before that, right? That you can actually make statements about what you are doing with your private balance. And so currently, Railgun has this deployed, and it checks against like the OFAC sanctions list, so you can, definitively prove that you're not on the SDN list, which I think is a really great thing to do. And there's a lot of research going on to like try to take and extend that. And I think that that's like some of the research that I'm really quite interested in, because what we could do, right, effectively is we can really try to like focus on, chain abuse, right? Everyone really gets hung up on like the definition of a bad actor, right? And I agree, this is a very multifarious word, right? Because a bad actor in a particular nation might be a reporter, right? And as an American, we both know that that's not the case, right? And reporters can say whatever they want to, or maybe one of my favorite things about America is that we get to just talk cash shit about politicians and nothing bad comes of it, right? We get to say really bad things about people, and it's tolerated, and rightfully so, right? But that's not the case everywhere, right? And those people are defined as bad actors in some places, right? And so we really get hung up on this, right? It's like, oh, well, how do you define what a bad actor is? But I think the reality is in DeFi, right? I think that we can identify chain abuse, right? I think that we all intuitively know what that is. Like the people who are listening to this are familiar with drainers, I'm sure, right? Fishing, spear fishing, right? People who rug or try to steal funds out of a bridge or whatever that might be. Like it exists, right? I'm sure we can all like definitively argue that that's like shithead activity on chain, right? And so we can actually take and have accumulators of these things, and they exist already, right? Chain abuse is a great one. The Sam CZ Sun and the Security Alliance people have a really great one. MetaMask as well. Scam Sniffer is another one, right? So like the community is actually taking and doing a job on like policing themselves, right? And we could take and use this data, right, to create like a really beautiful mechanism that will allow people who are good actors, like us, people on this today, right, listening, right, we can have privacy, and we can actually take and mitigate and limit people who are clear chain abusers from taking and joining in that, right? And I think that that's a really really important feature when it comes to um, when it comes to this kind of ecosystem, because in reality, right, what we live in when it comes to like crypto is a trustless society, right? We don't trust anybody, right? And so like we should lead from that like first, right? There is no trust in these mechanisms, right? And so in order to take and like um, lean into that more, I think that we can really kind of make it difficult and not trust people as much, right? And so that's how that's kind of like my thought process on it anyway, right? And so like the mechanical way that it works is the SDK effectively checks whether or not you have this ability to generate this zero knowledge proof of non-interaction, right? And this could be from the SDN list, it can be from a different accumulator, whatever it might be, right? And if you can demonstrate that you're within the inclusion set, you get to take and deposit and use your 0zk address as you wish. And these proofs recursively follow the funds like throughout the system. And yeah, you can then, like you said, demonstrate to someone. There's going to be I guess some alpha for the call, right? There's an explorer that's coming up really soon, so you'll actually be able to take and look at withdrawals and look at what proofs they've been able to generate, and that's going to be really quite interesting. You won't get to learn who they are or how much they have in their 0zk address, just the little thumbs up that they were able to take and generate that proof.
If I wanted to, could I use Railgun for mixing?
So I don't think so, right? I think like if you tried to do like some sort of like really large scale, um, mixing or something like this, it'd be really quite difficult, right? And I think like at the end of the day, the big like key difference for Railgun is that it exists to be like a private EOA, and so you actually have like a full on isolated address for your funds. So like a mechanical difference, but suffice it to say, um, I don't think so.
Okay. Okay. Does the authorities know this, or do they think that Railgun might be a mixer? Because it seems like that's what they have come after a lot of these protocols, saying that they could be used to mix funds.
Yeah, I think that like it's I'm certainly not a lawyer by any stretch of the imagination. So caveat all the things that I say with not legal advice or anything like that, right? Um, and so I think that like it's a really interesting time right here that we have, right? I mean, there's a lot of privacy mechanisms that are really quite strong, where like they don't have any problems, right? No one's going after Zuko or something like this for Zcash, and Fluffy Pony seems to be fine for Monero, and the guys who developed Aztec, et cetera, right? And so we have like a really um, something that feels quite targeted, and for people who are interested in following these kind of things, right? We're probably looking at another like 2 weeks before like we really get like a full on like deep understanding about like what these cases are about, especially when it comes to Tornado Cash. And so to your point, right? Actually, Tornado Cash, when it got sanctioned, I had reached out to Coin Center because I had met like Peter and Niraj and a couple of other people, um, around that kind of environment, the DC environment, if you will, which is something I'm wholeheartedly not familiar with. My background's in finance, like, and you know, not any sort of like political type stuff, right? And I was like, yeah, I would love to come to DC to talk about working on and like contributing to privacy, like why people care about this stuff, because I don't think that we talk about it enough, right? It's kind of like counter to um yeah, it's kind of like counter to the I guess like the root like reason why you use privacy, right? You don't go like I'm using a privacy tool, right? People will gladly say that they use a VPN, but like which VPN are they using? Like sometimes people are like, hesitant to say, right? And so I felt kind of compelled, like because I've been, really passionately advocating for like this kind of tech for a long time. And so I went to DC around that time and, spoke with folks at an event who were from like from OFAC. I spoke to the senators and things like this, and I've even given talks at various events that are hosted by law enforcement and things like this.
You said
And
you weren't a DC person. You're like all the politicians. You're like, oh, I'm not one of these DC people. I'm just going to all these events and mingling with all these people.
well, that's what's really weird about it to me, man. I mean, to be perfectly honest with you, like it's not what I expected. Whenever I was like, I'm gonna quit my day job and like be a DeFi DJ or whatever, right? Like whatever you want to call it. Like, I was like, I could take and focus on like, investing in crypto and like doing like on-chain speculation and advising on projects and things like this. And fast forward, it's been like I've been without a real job, if you will, for like I don't know, man, 3+ years at this point. And if you told me when I was like quitting my job that like I was going to talk to people in DC as like senators and speak with people who are like pretty serious like federal law enforcement agents and the like, I would have laughed at you, right? Because I think it's a bit ridiculous. So it's not something that I'm like wholly experienced in, but like it is something that I feel like as like a builder, like we should be doing, right? I mean, like at that time, the only like loud voices in DC were like SBF and like Alex Mashinsky, and both of those dudes turned out to be criminals. So like, um, I felt kind of obligated to, as like a very normal and boring person. Like, I mean, I'm just a married dude with kids and a dog, and very boringly pay my taxes and live as an American. But this is something that I think like makes protect people, right? I think that one of the biggest as DeFi users is like the propensity of getting phished or drained or something like this. And Railgun and these sort of like smart contract based wallets can really protect against that kind of thing. So it was something that I thought was really, really cool. But yeah, yeah. So yeah, I guess I am one of those people. Am I kidding? I just go full circle to it. Right? Maybe I've turned into that guy, right? But I like
Well,
to think not. But yeah.
Well, I mean, I think the proactive engagement and education that you're doing is great. And I just wanted to briefly contrast because I'm not super familiar. Like some of the others, like the Tornado Cash people seem to be much more like a let's flip the middle finger to the regulators in DC. Or am I getting that wrong? Did they also do a lot of proactive outreach?
I guess I'm not really too sure, how like Roman and whatnot, the Tornado Cash developers and contributors um, really spoke about law enforcement. I don't really think that was the case. I don't think that they really had that mindset. At least I hope they didn't. I most certainly don't. I think I think it's really pragmatic. And like whenever I've talked to people who are in law enforcement, just generally speaking, right, um, they seem to be like for the most part, reasonably well intentioned. I mean, like if we take and we try to like appreciate, I think what happens if I take a step back from this a bit, right? I think what happens is we sort of have a lot of crosstalk with government and law enforcement, right? And we don't really try to find a way to understand what the other side is talking about. And I do believe that happens, from the law enforcement side as well, right? Where people who are I don't know, whatever you want to call it. I hate like labels, but like people who are like privacy advocates and fans of cryptography and stuff, like immediately go towards like the you know conspiracy, lane. I tend to lean more towards like the pragmatic use cases for privacy, right? So like not doxing people's salary, for example, on chain, like having actor to actor privacy. So like I, as a crypto enthusiast, don't have to maintain like 15 to 20 addresses or something ridiculous like this in order to have some sort of like semblance of it. And so I see it like as like a very pragmatic thing. And so that's what I try to focus on and like try to make people understand. And then from like a security element, right? It's like a protection type thing. And so I think that like whenever you take and you express these ideas to whether it's like law enforcement or like government types, they tend to understand it, right? If we can talk about like, if law enforcement's like goal is to take and protect people, and I generally try to believe that, right? I'm more of an optimist, right? I'd rather be positive before I'm negative, right? And so I try to believe that the world is um, you know trending towards a better place, right? And if I think that like that's the case, then I do tend to believe that people are trying to protect folks. Then they should see like these kind of tools as like a really great way to protect people from like the most prolific things that happen in crypto, and that is like phishing attacks, and like the propensity for like wrench attacks and things like this. I mean, there's pretty horrific news out there, right? People getting like unfortunate things happen to them for their private keys and things like this. And so like, privacy is the kind of thing that's like really necessitated when it comes to finance. And whenever we talk about it in this context, right, it's for security, right? It's for really pragmatic business purposes, right? There's a very normal. Oh, look at that, my camera timed out. But yeah, it's like very normal. Boring Americans are working on this stuff, right? It really kind of I've not really gotten negative feedback from people whenever we talk about it in that context, and we can educate them on like how viewing keys can work. And so like, we can kind of like push towards, centralized exchanges, like getting to the point where they understand that this stuff works, right? That we can have, view key requests, or we can have these zero knowledge proving mechanisms that mathematically can display that I'm not on some sort of undesirable list for a centralized exchange, whatever that might be, right? And so like as we take and like work on this space more, like, and it matures, like I think that we really got to try to we got to bridge that gap. Otherwise, like I think we could run we could run afoul of law enforcement. And um, that's something that I think is really really interesting, and I see that like Railgun contributors are working on.
Well, you know what it is. I'm pretty sure I know why you're able to like bridge this gap between kind of privacy protocols and law enforcement. It's the mustache. You have this gorgeous cop style mustache, so I think they feel like at home with you, right?
Okay, boys, they're on to me. No, yeah, maybe so. Hey, like that's what it is. Maybe I'll really just lean into it. No, I think it's yeah, maybe that's part of it.
Well, I
But I
remember when
think
we were.
I've thought about it like really like rationally. That's what I really believe it
Mhm.
is, right? It's like I really try to understand where they're coming from, and like understand where the misconceptions are, because it's really frequent that like these people are quite bright, like a lot of these people go to like really advanced colleges and things like this, and ask articulate questions of DeFi, but the reality is they don't really understand it very well, right? And we kind of do ourselves a disservice in the public, right? We think it's really cute to be like um, a degen and things like this, but like this kind of nomenclature can have consequences, and like we kind of got to have like um, the ability to relate it to people who don't like um, think it's funny to have like crypto condom or something like this. Shout out to them.
Yeah. So when we were getting dinner in Denver, you'd mentioned this story about like
Mm.
you getting up in front of like a bunch of like all the kind of bigwigs in DC and giving this talk. And basically, the way you described it was like afterwards you were talking with them and you got kind of mixed reviews. Is that a story you'd be comfortable sharing here?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I think that like really ultimately most people like find. So I talked about this privacy pools type mechanism, at like a government type focused conference last year, um, late last year it was, and there's law enforcement and government types from around the world at this thing, and um, we outlined like this issue in privacy, right? And like one of the things that like I tried to express is like, why do people like us really love peer-to-peer mechanisms, and why do we like encryption? And the reality is I like it because like generally I don't trust centralized authorities with my information. Time and time again, right? They've been proven woefully inadequate at protecting it. I mean, even the most like sophisticated technology companies like Fang, or I guess do they call it Mang now? Did they change the ticker for that because it's Meta, not
Good
Facebook?
question.
Maybe they should. I'll
Gaman.
submit.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But suffice it to
Oh,
say, like
oh,
all
they
these.
can't do it because it's Mega. It's MAGA now. Meta, Apple, Google,
Uh, Moon soon,
Amazon.
man. Yeah, maybe they should change it to Matt. Yeah, we get that rabbit hole later. We'll talk about that
Yeah.
another time. But suffice it to say, right, all of these companies have like leaked our data, right? They've all
Yeah.
done
Oh,
it in some
yeah, yeah.
capacity.
Yeah, they have
So
the
like,
worst track record in the world, and then I'm filling out, like, all the forms for my taxes, and I'm just like, "Okay, this is all gonna be posted in public soon enough." Like
yeah, yeah, Equifax. Shout out to those dudes for
mhm.
storing all of my credit information in plain text. And so, like, the reason why I like this disintermediation, right, this peer-to-peer type stuff, is because like it puts that onus on me, right? And it also changes like the surface area, like for attack, right? You don't have to go after a sysadmin who has access to a data lake. It's a individual to individual to individual type thing to try to get their keys. And so this is a much slower process for would-be bad actors trying to gain access to information, right? And so like a lot of that kind of like argument like sort of resonated, and people clicked on that, right, and thought that was really quite interesting way to think about things. But then also we outlined this zero knowledge mechanism, right, where we could take and generate proofs of do-goodery, right, or non-interaction, whatever it might be, right. And one of the things that I was really critical of law enforcement is that I don't feel like they really get involved a lot. Even like the Office of Foreign Asset Controls, for example, delegated, if you will, the API for DeFi, right, that a lot of people try to use to block OFAC sanctioned addresses to a for-profit company known as Chainalysis. And I think that's not the right way to do it, right? And so, we kind of put out, like, hey, I think it'd be really interesting for, law enforcement to try to engage in these initiatives and understand that, like, what we're trying to build is, it's quite important. It's for the sake of like safety and security, and that seemed to be like not too bad, right? Um, and what you find is that like I would say like the vast majority of people were like, this is pretty awesome. I won't hit anybody individually with buses, but there were some people who definitely think the tech isn't great. But I think it's important to sort of think of government, law enforcement, hell, even DeFi, not as a monolith, right? But everybody has like their own individual opinions of things. I think GameFi's dumb, but I'm also only one dude. You know what I'm saying? I don't represent all of crypto, right? And I think that's the
Um,
case at these
so
conferences.
if I had to steelman the kind of regulator's case as to why, despite everything you said, Railgun might be bad, let me just go ahead and posit like, okay, so like you describing these things, which yes, we could go and like prove that someone's not involved in illicit funds. We could like go through these steps of proving it, but that sounds like a lot of work, right? Like I need to maybe like contact my people at Chainalysis, maybe pay them to run these analyses for us. When it's so much easier if I just drop a sanction against anyone who's ever interacted with any Railgun protocol address at all, period. Because that takes 2 minutes. The rats are going to scatter. And we saw with Tornado Cash that like after they sanctioned the address, like their traffic dropped like 90% or something. Like it was like pretty crazy when they did it. And then like it went to court and like it like maybe got stepped back a little bit, but the damage had kind of already been done. So isn't it just simpler to kind of like cast the like attack than to kind of like engage in this nuanced manner of like proving on a case by case basis that could be a lot of work?
I think that like law enforcement has an ability to perform like really significant due diligence, and perhaps that like Steel Manning uh, doesn't do it justice, right? A lot of the research and things like this that these people do, right? And so I think that they're really quite capable and frequently engage with people like Chainalysis, CipherTrace, Elliptic, TRM Labs, the list goes on, right? There's a pretty heavy engagement with these people already. And I would argue that, these zero knowledge type mechanisms actually make it easier because now you're not going to take and have to do like, these on-chain heuristics, which are, they're rife with the potential to be, fallible, right? In fact, like in the Bitcoin fog case, CipherTrace very famously said that they felt like there was something pretty off with the attributions, right? In fact, during that Sterling off case, Elizabeth Bisbee, put a statement to the court when requested that they don't have any like statistical rates associated with uh, any statistics associated with error rates. And this leads to things like misattribution of hacks, and whatnot, right? So like FTX was attributed to Russia, and it turned out to be like three dudes in flyover country in the United States doing SIM swaps. And um, I would say that, like, yeah, I think that law enforcement wants to take a nuanced approach. I think like this kind of clearly won't be like a sustainable thing, and I think that it's going after the wrong target, right? I think that like we should really start to focus a lot of the onus on like irresponsible development of um, irresponsible development of protocols if we want to put onus on builders in any capacity. I don't mean throw people who are like bad builders in jail or anything, but like we should really kind of like take a step back and say like, hey, like what's going on here? Is it, is it okay to run a bridge with a 3 of 3 multi-sig that's anon, aka me, multi-sig. I have to sign it 3 times, like, and so like, I think we really got to like, kind of like shift gears. I see like privacy mechanisms as like a bit of a, like an unfortunate bystander to this kind of crime, right? And so I don't know if that really answers your question though. Yeah, like could they do that, right? Sure, right? They could also like say that Tripool was bad because bad actors yeeted a bunch of money, whenever they ran off with it into Tripool, right? They could very easily make that argument about all that USDC that made a run for that contract.
That's true. The Wintermute hacker, I think, is last I checked was the majority of Tripool LP token. So that was a fun line of fun.
And so like yeah, it's ultimately what we're talking about here, right, is like that it's a very slippery slope, right? And I don't think that like law enforcement really want to I don't think like the law enforcement really wants to like try to go down that slippery slope type thing. They really want to take like a targeted approach. I think like suffice it to say like we should really kind of take a measured approach to these things. And don't read the news so much. Read the court dockets. If you're really into it, go to Court Listener. All that stuff exists on there. Actually read that. Don't read what's going on in CoinDesk or whatever. And take a second to thanks. I have a man crush on YouTube, bro. Whoever said that on YouTube. And we should take like a measured approach, right? And I think the measured approach here is we have like like maybe 2 weeks before like we get a lot of clarity on like what exactly is going to go on in these cases. And so I hope that it's favorable for these dudes. I don't want to see people locked up for writing code and doing complex mathematics, right? I think that that's a bit obtuse. So I just
No, makes sense. Makes sense. While you so we're like 40 minutes into this. Just want to thank we got 500 people watching us on X right now. So thank you all.
Nice.
Hopefully, anyone who's listening can do us a favor and share, subscribe. Just anything you can
or
do to
comment
spread.
on one of the posts, by the way, on one of the tweets with the broadcast in it, or on YouTube, whatever. Like I think that this is also like very engaging content. And can I ask a small question, Kev?
Oh, please do. It's a llama
Like,
party. It's open for everyone to be asking these
yeah,
things.
it's all.
Like,
And
gotta
if
get
you
some
want to come up,
engagement.
guys,
I think people were
yeah,
afraid to engage with it because they thought Railgun, if they engage, they go to prison, is like a honeypot. But
yeah,
hopefully,
yeah.
hopefully everyone's been convinced by now that
Uh,
Alan's pretty above board, dude. He's got the cop
yeah,
stash.
Should
yeah.
we
People
delete all
totally thought it was a Fed
our?
honeypot, right? What was this? Should we delete what now?
Should we delete all of our chats with Alan so that we won't be
Yeah, block me on
considered
Telegram
like
after this, right?
what?
Yeah, block me on Telegram after this.
I actually wanted to ask you, like, I think you said something like a minute ago about that you don't see, like, why should the government take like a too much of a harsh approach on these, and that maybe a lot of it actually comes from media and not really from like the court rulings themselves. And I don't really doubt that. But it's also like it's not like the court is like an entity of itself that is just gonna uh, things are intertwined. And it does seem like crypto in general. I'm not talking within the industry, like from what we see every day. I'm talking in the outside, on the outside world. On the outside world,
Hmm.
crypto is still in general considered a scam. And now you tell them that okay, this is privacy within DeFi. Okay, so it's like next level scam to
Right.
to
Trying to
the
protect
ears of like the
scammers, right?
normal guy knowing about it. I'm not saying that they're correct or anything, but
Hmm.
I do think that there is a big part of like, okay, what do we do about all this, all the perception of what we do, and how do we like change that? How do we make sure that people understand that privacy, in fact, is a right that they should insist on or upon, instead of just like okay, no, if I'll do that, I will be considered a criminal. So I think that's one of the biggest gaps regarding it, because I think that many people are not even getting near these areas. I think I told you that on one of the streams actually in the past.
Hmm.
Like it's people just fear of interacting with these kinds of protocol because they think that they will be flagged. And I think,
So I
by the way, that
think
it's a very good thing that someone like Vitalik starts using it, because it sets an example. But I think that it's a big process, because it's not something that people are easily leaning into, from what I see.
yeah, I think that like so you've said a lot of things here, and a lot of it I agree with, right? Totally. I think one of the things that we have to do as a community is grow up a little bit, to be honest, right? I think that we really got to like mature what we're doing, right? And I think we have to like also temper our expectations at the same time. And so, like one of the examples I talk about frequently is credit cards, right? The first credit card was invented in 1950, right? And it took arguably until like the early 90s for them to get like any reasonable amount of traction. In fact, if people who are watching this on YouTube, open a new tab, don't leave, but like open a new tab and like look, there's a video where they're doing an interview at Burger King because they had started accepting credit cards at Burger King, and they're interviewing people and they're thinking, they're like, oh, Mr. Whopper orderer, what do you think about credit cards for burger purchases? And of course, he says, I think that's stupid. If you can't afford a cheeseburger, why are you going to put it on a credit card, right? And so, like, but there was one guy, right? There's this one early adopter, right? And he says like something to the tune of like, yeah, well, I'm gonna swipe my credit card here today. I'm gonna get some points, and I'm gonna take my wife on a trip with my airline points. So like this dude knew what he was doing. He was really early to the game, and we are too, right? I don't think the adoption cycle, because even like I live in Japan currently. I still got to carry around cash, like still super cash society. 74 years later, after the first credit card was invented, right? So the adoption cycle for credit cards, while definitely well up the hockey stick, still not complete, right? There's still really heavy cash societies. Germany being one of them, for example, right? Outside of Japan.
You have
And
to use a wheelbarrow for your cash in Japan with the way inflation's going there, right?
dude, yeah, thank God I don't make yen, I guess. Anyways, yeah. And so yeah, like we have to temper our expectations, like how far along we are in this tech, right? And so I think that what happens a lot of times is we look at And so back to like the maturity point, right? I think like we have to be mature enough to appreciate like how early we are. We always say like, oh dude, you're early, we're so early, right? But we have to like understand why we're early, and not just like have it be like some sort of like, weird mantra that we state, right? And I think that also means that when we say that we're early, we have to appreciate that like, the tech that we're developing now perhaps isn't ready for like mass adoption, right? It's still super soon. Like, there's a lot of things that we need to solve for, and so like, as you're raising money or something like that, like if you're doing some DeFi project, like temper your expectations a little bit, like you take your TAM, right, your total addressable market, and maybe bring it down just a little bit, right? And then I think we also have to like, mature from the perspective that is like, um, I think we have to mature from the perspective of like what it means to like thwart scammers and bad actors. Like to your point, right? There's a lot of shitty people in the space. Um, it's definitely not the majority. I don't think. I think both you dudes are swell stand-up citizens, right? Two good dudes in the room, and I think a lot of those people are out there, right? It's just not really loud, right? Just like Google reviews, the negative stands out, right? And I think that as good actors, like we have to be a lot more harsh on people who are like not. And we really got to go out of our way to really call out bad behavior, not just like malicious, but like bad design that's like security risk for users, right? Like stop taking people's money and putting it in multi-sigs. That like stop putting people's money in EOAs. Like just stop doing that. I think that's not good. And so we got to grow up as like a developer as well, right? And then we have to like mature in a way that allows us to really take a look at the community and find ways to thwart bad actors, right? I was at this event yesterday here in Sydney, and these people were taking like this really hard line like binary approach, which happens really frequently in privacy, where people say like, oh well, you can't catch all bad actors, therefore like you shouldn't try, right? This is a fruitless endeavor, right? There's things that you can do on chain that can't be like easily identified as bad acting. Like I could buy drugs with crypto and you wouldn't know that I bought drugs with that crypto. And it's like, that's well and
Murder's
good,
illegal,
right?
but murders still happen. Therefore, it's a failure. Make murder legal, right? Like it's like it doesn't follow.
Exactly right. Yeah, 100%, right? But back earlier in our conversation, we were talking about very clear and obvious chain abuse. We all know about these things, right? We see it happen. Drainers, fishers, fucking ruggers, right? People taking and rugging projects, raising money from from unknowing people and taking their money and running off with it and this kind of thing, right? And we can really work diligently to try to like give those people a hard time. And that's what I think like this privacy pools like mechanism does, right? It allows us to take and like make a mechanism like Railgun as like annoying as fucking possible for these kind of people to use, right? And I think that this can extend outside of like the privacy realm, right? I think we should really mention that, right? Like a bridge operator, for example, could take and have these kind of mechanisms that like if you can't take and generate some sort of proof, right, you can prevent people from doing actions with your your mechanism. And like I think that we can kind of like not focus so much on like some like what's like the perfect binary definition of a bad actor, and really just like just start with the practical steps.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things about it is I feel like all the kind of quote unquote good actors in the space like think, oh, of course I'll call out the bad actors when they come. And then like there is this kind of phenomenon where it's like the scuzziest projects tend to get like the loudest and like angriest communities that will fight back, right? Like I'm thinking of particular of like the Terra example. Like anyone who is like trying to call out like, hey, there looks like there's something wrong with this anchor protocol giving 20% when banks are giving 0%. Maybe it's a bad idea. And then like you get this swarm of angry people, and in particular like Do Kwon himself would like come on and like call you poor and ugly or whatever. And
Yeah.
it played well on social media, and people just stopped doing it because it's like, what's the point in doing this if I'm going to get attacked? Like Zach XBT is another really good example. Like he is, or Officer CIA was like the other day was saying like, I'm just
Totally.
getting burnt out by this. I'm trying to help people with operational security, and all I get is haters. Like, so what's the incentive to actually be a good actor in the space? You're not getting rich off of it. You're not maybe you get out of.
I mean, I think there's definitely good actors getting rich off of it, right? Shout out to Vitalik, right? I mean, that dude won the money game super hard. But
That's true, yeah.
There's definitely good people in the space making money, right? I think ultimately, this is to say is that it's a thing to do, really. That's why we do it, right? You should do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. And sometimes the right thing to do is hard, right? Like you just mentioned, two great examples, Officer and Zach, right? Those dudes get tons of shit for trying to do the right thing. And so we should really try to honor those people in the community, right? Because it's important.
Yes, definitely. And I think that, you're considered many times when there's a hype around the project and and someone has criticism about it. The first response by people is, "Oh, why are you ruining the party? Can't you see we're all making 50% a day here? Why do you have to be so annoying? Why do you have to audit
more memes,
everything?
less criticisms, right?
Yeah. Why do you bring all that negativity in and all that kind of stuff?
It's just FUD. Ignore the FUDsters.
Yeah, and I think that but I can also understand that because many times it is the case that people just FUD. But I think that a lot of what we do as just people who follow the industry, we try to realize when are these calls just FUD and come from an opposed financial interest by specific people, and when is it okay, guys, someone is actually looking at that code. He says that something
this
is
dude
wrong.
is onto something, right?
Yeah. This guy is smart and he's richer than the protocol. It's let's do something. But I think that
right.
And by the way, I think that the fact that there is I'm trying to turn it into a question. How does something like Railgun or privacy change that? Because maybe in a few years they won't know what everyone is doing on his address all the time. I recently got I will share this with you. I talked to a guy about that I found out about him online in Israel, but he also does a lot of streams in English, and a very smart guy and very knowledgeable about many things and technology, for sure more than myself about pretty much everything, but not crypto specifically necessarily. And when I told him something about the fact that he should open a channel and start doing not only interviews on other channels, but some content of his own, and that crypto can maybe assist with that, he told me, well, I don't really like crypto, first of all, because of quantum computing, that nothing will really sustain the power of quantum computers, and he doesn't find it to be as resilient as people within the industry think. And also he mentioned the privacy part, the fact that when everything is completely transparent, if someone knows that this address is linked to you, then you're probably
it's linked
it's
to
not
you.
simple
With
for
that
many
information what you will, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not very, especially for people who want to be out in public in a way. As time goes by, I really understand anons in crypto. I didn't understand that when I was not as much. When I was much more of a noob, I didn't. And all of a sudden, I see a team like the Conic team, and I'm telling myself, you know what? Maybe they're actually having maybe they have the sane and reasonable approach. No way that anyone is going to know what my name is, and just let me build a product that people in different can use. So I'm very curious on how will Railgun and other projects regarding privacy will change how we perceive it, because I really think that we will probably look at these days and think, man, how did we even do it? How did we interact on chain like we did?
I think that I think it comes from conversations like this. First of all, these kind of streams that can really kind of trickle out information that people might have not thought of before, right? And I think that we have to come up with like real, tangible reasons why privacy is important. And it can't be like, I mean, the tinfoil hat stuff is really quite fun, and we can talk about things like an Alex Jones type perspective, like and get really like handsy with it. But I think that we really got to talk about like
Put stuff in our water.
They're turning the frogs gay. And
It's a good impression, actually.
thanks, man. I work on it. I work on it in the mirror, and just like I could be ready with it.
Yeah. We should have a.
It's almost people listening to this like know that it's almost 1:00 in the morning here in Australia. But suffice it to say, I think like what you're talking about is like shifting the narrative, right? And I think that we have to really kind of take a step away from like saying like people are going to continue to say like privacy equals bad people, right? But I think we got to really turn it around, right? And maybe we could look at like VPNs as a really great example, right? Like VPNs and like IP privacy is something that like isn't really considered, but it actually got like really pragmatic use from. I mean, shout out to Netflix for being a really great company that's really pushed privacy forward with geofencing, right? Like I'm trying to watch my shows, and so people would take it, get like a VPN, and that's kind of how it started, right? With these really boring, mundane, use cases that exist, and I think that we have to talk about those more when it comes to like crypto privacy, so making payments to people and not doxing, right? This is really, really important, right? So like, how do we take and do like a transfer of money without someone being able to click on Etherscan and judge you for the NFTs you've bought and the shit coins that you've purchased, and or even worse, like you have like at like the high finance side, like people are like shout out to Toki, like we're like, dude, this guy's like levered long on umami, like, and I bet I could liquidate him, right? Not great, right? This is not like a really cool thing to do, right? So how do we take and like talk about these real use cases that are relatable to people, and so that they understand that like privacy is a very pragmatic thing in finance. It's something that people really expect, but then we have to also educate them on the other side, right? When it comes to what kind of mechanisms can they have for the individual user. 100x long right now. Let's go. But suffice it to say, right, all the different tools that can exist like around view keys, this is zero knowledge proof of non-interaction, the privacy pools protocol type stuff, being able to take and do tax exports, this kind of thing, right? And showing people that like just because you have like an encrypted balance, it doesn't mean that you're like a bad actor. You're just using it for security or paying people, whatever this might be.
Yeah, the analogy that Patrick. I was gonna say the analogy that Patrick Collins likes to give is like if your town mandated that you have a sign in front of your house advertising your net worth that you had to update at all times, you'd say that was crazy, right? Like you'd say like,
absolutely, it'd be absolutely absurd.
Because you're just inviting people to rob you at that point. Like it's like a safety issue beyond a certain point. By the way, shout out, we passed 800 people watching us on X, so let's get that up to 8,000.
Nice.
For sure.
So,
but let's do it privately, Garrett. Let's not have them like watch the stats and all. Like, why do they?
Yeah. This is people's embarrassing shame watch here. No, let's you're like so like absurdly reasonable about this. It's almost like frustrating. But let's you're really good at like at looking at the points of view of some of these people. So let's see if we can get you.
He's been like, Washingtoned up. You know what I mean? Like.
So let's see if we could get you to like you did a good job of like essentially like describing the case of like what law enforcement is looking for. Like what about someone like Elizabeth Warren? Is there like actually a rational argument to be had with her, or is she just like completely approaching this disingenuously because like she can get political clout for what she's doing? What's your take on that?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Because
I
I don't
hope
think it's
not.
I don't think it's
It's
genuine.
not legal for him to answer, probably.
Well, like I'll offer my take. Like, I mean, she's super smart, right? Like, I had a friend
Definitely.
who took her class at Harvard Law School, and basically said like she was like so quick at engaging with the students and like going back and forth and like just like so she's smart, right? But it seems like she's being deliberately obstreperous about some of these points.
And
And
also,
Hmm.
my take is just because like her baby is the CFPB, whatever that entity that she created, which derives a lot of power
The
from
Consumer
like
Financial Protection Bureau, right?
that's it. Yeah, it derives so much power from its kind of like its position within the traditional financial system that she. Even though this like kind of new financial system might actually be more in line with her original vision, it kind of like it's like I don't know, that's like the read I give on it. And as a
Well,
result, like we can't get her to like treat this space I don't know, fairly, I guess. I don't know.
well, I guess we have to appreciate that the government is made up of many people, and while Elizabeth Warren is loud and proud and states ideas that she believes to be true and accurate, she's not the only person in the government and doesn't get to single-handedly sign things into law herself, right? And so this is not a totalitarian regime. Last time I checked, in the United States. And so, yeah, I think new things are scary, right? Absolutely mortifying, right? I don't think that history always like repeats itself, but I do think it rhymes, right? And we can kind of see like the same thing happened in the early '90s whenever like the encryption standards started to proliferate the internet, right? Before Netscape, right? I mean, everything was just regular old HTTP, right? And whenever like the original crypto wars, right? People who are listening to this, like, go read about that stuff. Rebels with a Cause, I think, was a Wired article, which is a great jump off point. And it talks about people who were really big on encryption in the '90s, right? And yeah, like people were like, "Oh, this is bad, right? Gonna help bad actors and child pornographers and all these different things, right?" And they're really scared because new things are scary, right? But now we fast forward to today, we go, like, dude, the S after HTTP is not scary at all, right? And in fact, it allowed the internet to take over our lives, right? And it allowed us to take and have commerce on the internet and type our credit card information on the internet without worrying that someone's going to man in the middle it and buy things that you don't want them to with your money, right? And I think that we have to appreciate that these conversations are very long and drawn out. The crypto wars, right? Kind of, I guess we can debate on when it ended, but like the Bernstein case is ultimately, what I would say, sort of bookended it, and it took like a decade, bro. I mean, it took almost 10 years, these crypto wars, right? And so we're kind of seeing like a continuation of that, right? With like the disintermediation of finance, right? Which is totally scary because now like a lot of the things that were like checkpoints in, current established compliance and, regulatory regimes don't exist anymore, right? And so that creates like a really big and interesting challenge, right? Like if you don't have an intermediary that's forced to do things, what happens. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, I get it's I try to that's how I try to think about it, right? People who don't understand it, think it's scary.
You mentioned earlier, Alan, that you think that as an industry on some levels we're naive, and I want to touch that point actually, but from a different like direction. I think that we're mostly naive about not realizing that we have to work just like the other side works, meaning we need our own lobbyists, and we need an effort like about how stuff actually gets done, and not like okay, just playing the outside turning game. Like we can't just send like brilliant guys on to DC like you or Austin Campbell or some of the others that really do, I think, like an amazing representation for the space and from the best place possible done. But actually to actually do these processes and to play this actual game the way it's played, we need our own lobbyists, because, like, for example, I don't really believe that most like, let's say it this way, like, I'm sure that many go into politics because they are visionaries, and many in the politics scene are in fact visionaries, and maybe Elizabeth Warren herself as well. But I think that mostly their opinion is being manipulated by lobbyists. It's not like they're just like taking a specific thing and judging it. And that's why I touched earlier on the fact that, yeah, it's also about media, and it's also about that stuff. Because true, a court can rule whatever it rules, but like, there's a whole story being told, and this affects everyone. This affects, by the way, judges as well, in my opinion, because they're like, no one is living in a vacuum. They're like the different authorities like are not like completely separated, even if we want to pretend they are. And in my opinion, like, one of the things that we as an industry must learn how to do to really like push us. And by the way, maybe this kind of stuff is happening I'm pretty sure it's happening to a certain degree, but like
Definitely.
but like, I don't know, and it's not something really
So there's
but the only way
there's a
to
couple of
do it,
things.
yeah, like, we have to have a strong lobby from the inside. We have to play this game like it's actually played. We have to do what we have to do behind the scenes and all that, and in a good way, meaning like that's how the world actually works, whether we enjoy that fact or not.
Definitely. So there's a couple of things that I would say, right, that's happening, right? There's when it comes to lobbying efforts, I'll shout out a couple of people that I know, right? The Blockchain Association in the United States, they they seem to understand the space really greatly. And when I say the space, I mean DC. No, both, right? So send DeFi advisor, maybe that's what we do, right? But suffice it to say, right? The Blockchain Association, those guys are really doing great work, putting out lots of really good education. They host events and write statements and advocacy type things when it comes to DeFi and crypto. There's POSA, the Proof of Stake Association, which is really great. But last but most certainly not least is Coin Center. I have so much respect for Peter and Niraj and everybody else who works there. They're some of the brightest people and have like the most compelling thoughts when it comes to crypto, DeFi, freedom, all of these things, right? Those people seemingly work very, very tirelessly to try to educate when it comes to crypto tech. But I agree. Yeah, it's definitely something that we need to continue to enhance. In fact, you should donate to Coin Center, by the way.
I did. They gave me this as thanks for donating. This is the Bitcoin white paper pocket
Let's
version.
go.
So.
Can you show it on a bigger screen?
Yeah, let me let's see.
Oh,
nice.
Wow. What's that? Like
that's awesome.
It's the white paper, Satoshi Nakamoto. It probably cost me more to send it than or print it than the amount I donated, but still felt good. I'll probably donate again.
We should try to hook them on.
They're doing good research. Yeah, they're doing really amazing research. They're super smart people. Like, go to their website and read their papers. Like, just read that stuff. I wholeheartally recommend it to everybody. And so, I think like it's important too, right? You say we can't just send people, right? I totally think we can, right? And I think we could send ourselves too, right? I think we very seldomly appreciate that. We can just write our senators, and we should, right? We can write our congressmen, especially in the U.S. We should be really annoying about this stuff, right? There's a famous idiom in America, at least in the Southeast. Tell me if this is a thing where you're from, but it's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? And we're not being squeaky enough. So
yeah, I strongly agree with it, and it's like I've kind of given up my crusade on this, but because people just won't do it, right? Like if everyone who spends like all day on crypto Twitter just complaining about these things, if they took 5 minutes to call up their local congressperson, it would be done. It would be over. Like
Honestly, yeah.
there really is a disconnect also already, even like because some people are doing it and some people are engaging, and like even at the very local level, like there's a big disconnect in my opinion between people's opinions on crypto and the opinions coming out of DC. Because I'm in Washington State, right, the Northwest. It's like as blue as it gets, right? And I remember after one of these like latest things, I think it was one of the Senate committee hearings or whatever. I happened to be at a crypto event, and it was like the mayor of one of the cities was there, and like someone just asked them, is like, what was going on in DC? Like, this is your party. And they're just like, I don't know what's going on with them. It doesn't make any sense to me. And like a blue mayor of a blue city, it's like, so people could like talk to their local congressperson and really change the opinion on things, but we don't want to. And so we're getting what we deserve.
Yeah, it is our just desserts, right? Like we have to really, we got to kill the apathy. You're right. It takes no time actually.
It
You
doesn't.
don't have
It
to go
doesn't.
to you don't have to go directly to DC, right?
It's not a honeypot either. Like you write them, and it's not like they put you on a list and send like like the IRS to your door for buying a Dogecoin or something like that. Like they generally are like, oh, this is what people
Well,
are
that's
saying.
that's why they've hired all those people, right? Because they couldn't do that. But now that the extra 84,000 people,
That's it.
they're
Yeah,
coming.
yeah. As soon as you write your congressperson, bam, got him.
No more unemployment in the US after the IRS recruit
Yeah,
over
right.
there.
Yeah, unemployment all-time low after new hiring spree from IRS.
Yeah, almost 100,000 people there. Like that's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot of people. So I guess, yeah, I guess really, privacy definitely, right? Something we really gotta, fight, and come out with our best ammunition, if you will. Railgun pun intended. And we should, really be measured in like how we talk about these things and try to be really, really loud and vocal about it. But I mean, crypto, it's really quite easy, like you can take and just donate money if you're feeling lazy. Yeah. Like just pay someone else to do it, right? Blockchain Association is a great example. Coin Center, another really great example. There's various like legal funds and things like this. Pick the one that's there's like a proof of work type association, whatever. Like pick your poison and give some money.
Yeah. I know it's like super late where you're at, so I don't want to keep you any longer than you have to. I did want to give you a chance to respond to our friend Tarek, who dropped this meme after the Samurai Wallet thing. How are you sleeping these days? You're not in Sydney because you're like on the lam, are you?
Oh, I think they have like an extradition treaty anyway, but no, most certainly not.
Has there been
I think
any
that
has there been any agencies contacting you like regarding these kinds of topics or anything like that? Or
no, definitely
are there
not.
more tools that you could build to make their lives easier that you haven't built?
Man, that's a great question. I don't know. I'm really bullish on like the continued iterations around the privacy pools protocol stuff, right? I think that like continuing to enhance above and beyond like the OFAC SDN list that it currently checks to like more, perhaps like community curated type things that are a lot more quick to, find, fishers and drainers and things like this is going to be really great. But in terms of like going on the lam or something like this, I think like memes are really fun, right? There's memes and things like this, and it's cute. But there's real people who work on these kind of things and contribute to projects that are really passionate about math and things like this, right? Who like zero knowledge, and I think that like it's really quite dangerous, and we should really consider what happens, in a worst case scenario whenever these things start going down the slippery slope, and it's not like just privacy in the in the limelight, right? Where does that stop, right? I mean, a lot of the things that exist in crypto could be at risk, right? So like it's fun to be funny, but like I think like the more powerful thing that people can do is to work towards like getting open source developers out of prison, right? I think that that's something that we really need to take a strong look at it ourselves about, right? Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's something that I think everybody should think about if you work in the space, if you contribute to projects. Like, what are we doing to like advocate and educate and try to make sure that the long term, I don't know, missions accomplished, whatever that might be, and how you define it.
Very well said. Is there any topics that we haven't covered yet that you like think that we should cover?
Totally. I think
Okay.
like it's definitely late, as you can tell. I'm super tired. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. But I love these conversations. I took a nap just so I could hang out with you guys today. But I think like the thing that I'm really excited about, and I would love if people would do is give privacy mechanisms a go. Talk to your friends about them. Understand like the practical implications of these kind of tools. Well, I think we've touched on all of those things, but don't follow me on Twitter. I'm not incredibly interesting. I don't think I say anything super special. Maybe follow like the main account from the community. The I don't even know what it is. Is it Railgun Privacy on Twitter? I should know that, huh?
Railgun_project, and
Yeah,
your
Railgun
account
project.
is Sucret.
Yeah.
I would recommend following both. He's being too modest.
But yeah,
Also, maybe even like some of
Hmm.
like even the simple actions that someone can do if they want to start using
yeah, there's a couple of wallets out there that exist.
I'm pretty convinced that most users haven't.
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you're interested in privacy, right? There's one thing we haven't talked about. Like, there's this really great project that I've sort of like tried to help advise and contribute to called Web3 Privacy. Have you guys heard about this?
I haven't.
Yeah, so they got a website. Let's see, what is it? Web3 Privacy. They got a Twitter.info. So it's web3privacy.info. If you're curious about like privacy tools for the space, this is like the L2 beat for privacy. It's a really great, it's like the DeFi, I guess we're on like a Llama thing. It's like DeFi Llama for privacy.
Okay, wow.
So,
Oh, nice.
it's like you can actually take, and if you go to the research tab, you can look at like all the different things that are being built. If you're interested in contributing to like privacy, they have like a I think they have like a hiring section and things like this. These dudes do a ton of like due diligence in the space, and so if you're interested in like learning about privacy pools, like, and really want to understand, like, there's a lot of things being worked on and developed in privacy, right? I'm in the in the echo chamber, so like I take and I can take and rifle off a lot of these, but like yeah, suffice it to say, these dudes do a ton of research. So if you're trying to dive in on that stuff, have a look at that. If you're curious about like Railgun tech, I mean, there's like Railway Wallet. Those dudes did a great job integrating the SDK. There's this thing called Terminal Wallet. They did a great job integrating the SDK. It's kind of like this really cool like command line interface if you're into that kind of stuff. And yeah, I'm excited to see. I'm excited to see where things go, especially over the coming weeks when it comes to a lot of like the actions that are coming out of the DOJ, et cetera. Yeah, I hope it's positive, honestly, and genuinely believe it will be.
Right on. DeFi Advisor, do you have any more questions?
No, nothing.
He's over there.
Like I can have a lot, but I want Alan
yeah,
to sleep a bit.
Yeah,
And
he's over there digging into the Web3 privacy website.
Yeah.
It's good. It's
Can you hear me now?
I like this. Yeah,
Can you
definitely.
hear me now? Cool. I was on mute. Well, I have a lot of questions, but I do want the guy to sleep a bit.
Yeah, I got to get into my my prison bed over here at the do they have red
How
roof
long
in
have you-
Australia?
How long have you been there? Like, for how long are you in Australia? Last time we talked a few months ago, you were on your way to Japan.
Yeah, totally. Live in Japan now, but yeah, we're here for East Sydney, hanging out for the hackathon, which is really, really great. I always love being around builders, and gave a talk yesterday at Pragma. If you were there for that, hopefully it was interesting. If you weren't, I think they recorded it, and we'll put it up later, and you can judge me if it's not. So, but yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. It's been a lot of fun. I always enjoy these kind of conversations. I'm glad we could do them on stream, especially in front of a pretty reasonable audience. And thanks to everybody for listening to us talk.
Absolutely,
For sure, for
absolutely.
sure. And by the way, you've just earned some more squid, Alan. Garrett, when I told him on the DMs that
I was like, is this a scam? Am I being scammed right
telling
now?
me, oh, wait a minute. Look at the Telegram. Like, look what Garrett wrote. Believe me.
No, it's true. We should have. The month just closed. I'm hoping to finalize the squid drop this weekend. So all of you eager squids who have some tokens coming your way. The only problem is the show. So we divide the squid drops into the news half of things, which is pretty easy because it's all run by bots. So we just run a query and it calculates everything. And then there's the show guests, which we have. Frankly, it's done a horrible job of organizing. So every day that we wait is another day I have to go back and watch through one more video to calculate and tabulate and try and match people's addresses up. And it's so all the show people who are they keep saying where's my squid? Where's my squid? We're working on it. We're working on it. But all of you keep the news headlines coming. That squid's coming fast. So
Awesome.
All right,
cheers,
friend.
guys.
Yeah,
Thank
cheers
you so much.
So this has been Leviathan Llama Party. It's May 3rd, May 4th for some of you. We thank you all for being here. Make sure to catch us on X, on YouTube, on Spotify. Mint this on pods.media, I believe the site is. And we will catch you all